Yo, welcome back. This is Support Via Quirk Larceny by Flapjack09, Chapter 9, the one where Izuku and May get kidnapped. Tomura paced back and forth around the League of Villains bar, deep in contemplation, the words he heard from Sensei playing on loop in his head. We shall keep an eye on this child. After all, if Tomura doesn't work out, it's always handy to have a plan B. I just don't get it, Tomura complained to Kurogiri. Sensei's been looking after me all my life, and now he suddenly wants to introduce a player too? Or even worse, he might want to change characters altogether. And what for? That kid beat up 2 of our Nomu for God's sake. Please, do not take it personally, Tomura, Kurogiri advised. Master is just enamored with Midoriya's quirk. You know how he gets when he spots an interesting one. Tomura snarled. I do. As soon as he heard about that All Might clone from America, he wouldn't shut up about her quirk. Tomura slammed his hand on the bar counter, partially disintegrating it. Well, Sensei told me to take the initiative, so I will. Kurogiri, call back all the recruits and tell them to meet here tomorrow morning, and then we'll see who has the better quirk. So, I got a new quirk today, Izuku said to May as they made their way from the train station to UA. Oh, let me guess. May pondered silently for a moment before answering. You got a quirk that lets us go back in time. I could use a quirk like that. I could make so many more babies in a day. Izuku chuckled. Nothing as fancy as that, just a simple lizard mutation quirk that lets me stick to the walls. Who gave you that? Never got his name. He just came up to me last night and asked me to take his quirk. He said he was starting a new job and didn't want to deal with mutation discrimination, so I offered him my moss quirk in exchange. May was saddened by that statement. You got rid of moss, but your hair was so fluffy. Hey, my hair is plenty fluffy already. May, being a woman of science, decided to test that hypothesis. She reached out her right hand and ruffled it through Izuku's hair. Oh yeah, it was fluffy. Izuku and May's conversation was interrupted as 2 purple portals opened beneath them, which they then fell through because of gravity. Izuku and May landed on opposite sides of a bar, with May landing on a chair surrounded by villains. May recognized Scratchy and Misty, but this was her first time seeing Stabby Girl, Muscle Man, Gas Mask, Purple Scars, Magnet Lady, Toothy Dude, Magician, and Guy with Dissociative Identity Disorder. May mentally congratulated herself for being so good with nicknames. Immediately, Tomura wrapped 4 fingers around May's neck while a blonde-haired girl pulled out a knife and prepared to slit her throat. Izuku immediately recognized the man threatening May's life. It's you! The guy whose name I forgot. It's Tomura Shigaraki, said Tomura Shigaraki. I'm sure you'll remember that name after me and Toga kill your friend, girlfriend, sister figure. It teeters between the first and the third one, May clarified, seemingly unbothered by being held at knife point. What do you want? Are you trying to recruit me? Just because I don't want to be a hero doesn't mean I want to be a villain, Izuku stated. Tomura shook his head. No, nothing like that. What you're going to do is give me your quirk and everything that comes with it, or we will kill your friend. How's that sound? That sounds like a terrible deal, May snarked. I'm worth at least twice the amount of quirks he has. Then it sounds like a bargain on his part, Tomura pointed to Midoriya. So what do you say? Izuku gulped nervously and slid towards the villains. Alright, you can have my quirks, just don't hurt her. Alright then, hand them over. Tomura held out his other hand, which Izuku took, minus the thumb. Okay, I'll give you the quirks one at a time. This first one's called Ligma. I fucking know what Ligma is! Toga, kill her! Before Tomura finished the sentence, the metal on Toga's knife liquefied and flew into her eyes, before solidifying on her face, binding her. Damn it! Tomura roared, as he lunged for Izuku's neck with all 5 fingers. only to find that his quirk has already been stolen. Frustrated but ultimately undeterred, Tomura threw Izuku's body at the man covered in burn scars. "Dabi, kill him!" Dabi pointed his flamethrower at Izuku, but before he could pull the trigger, Izuku grabbed it with both hands and it began disintegrating in his grasp. "You know what? Fuck it!" Tomura grunted. "League of Villains, Zurge Rush!" Everyone else in the room looked at Tomura in confusion. "It means everyone attack him at the same time," he clarified. Having understood the orders, Muscular and Moonfish were the first to go for Izuku. Muscular jumped up and slammed on Izuku with both fists. To his surprise, Izuku caught his fists thanks to shock absorption, and turned them into noodle arms with decay before taking his quirk. As Moonfish tried and failed to pierce Izuku with his sharp teeth, Izuku used muscle augmentation to bulk up his arms and knock Moonfish out with a single punch before yoinking his quirk away. Suddenly, Izuku was hit in the back of the head with a stone pillar, which then broke upon impact. Izuku slowly turned to the attacker, a quiet rage in his eyes. "Wasn't me," Magne lied. Izuku took her quirk anyways. Magnetism? He could work with that. He mentally grabbed Toga and Tomura and slammed them into each other, knocking the wind out of both of them. "Not so fast!" Mr. Compress yelled after appearing in a puff of smoke. "With a wave of my hands, you'll be gone in an instant." "Oh, a magician! Well, I've got a trick or two for you, too." Izuku reached in his pocket and pulled out an Uno reverse card from Hammer Space. He then proceeded to compress Mr. Compress into a marble. And then, to make sure you won't escape, Izuku reached out to try and take Kurogiri's quirk, but he vanished through a portal before the quirk could transfer. "What the hell, Kurogiri?" Tomura shouted. You see, under normal circumstances, Kurogiri would never abandon Tomura, but ever since the sports festival, All for One grew worried that Izuku would one day take Warp Gate. As a precaution, he hardwired a command in Kurogiri that stated if someone tried to take his quirk, he would immediately teleport as far away as possible. "Is that everyone?" Izuku asked no one in particular. "You forgot about me," Mustard announced. Izuku turned to see he was in front of May, pointing a gun at her forehead. Izuku just groaned, clearly tired of this bullshit. "May, could you use the forbidden technique I told you to only use in this specific set of circumstances?" "Okay," May cheered out before kicking Mustard in the groin, who fell over on the ground, writhing in pain. "Twice!" Magne called out. "You're the last one still standing. You gotta clone yourself." Twice frantically waved his hands. "Nuh-uh! No way! Fuck you!" Izuku raised an eyebrow in curiosity and turned to Twice. "You can clone yourself? That's pretty cool. Why don't you want to?" Twice stared at his hands in horror. "I don't know whether I'm a clone or not, and I ain't waiting to find out." Izuku thought to himself for a moment before an idea flashed on his face. "Hold on, let me try something." He yoinked Twice's quirk before realizing it was more complicated than he thought. "How do you make a clone?" "Like I'm telling you, it's simple. All you need are full body measurements." Thankfully, Izuku fitted himself for support gear on the daily, so he had the measurements necessary to create a clone of himself. He grabbed at the clone, trying to take its quirks, but there weren't any quirks to be taken. "Just as I suspected," Izuku said as he returned Twice's quirk, destroying the clone in the process. "Clones don't have quirks to steal, but you do. Therefore, you're not a clone. You're the original." "I'm real?" Tears started streaking down Twice's face. "I'm a real boy." He grabbed Izuku's hand and started shaking it violently. "Thank you so much. I hate you." He immediately turned and walked out the door. "I quit villainy. I'm off to become a stun double. Smell you later." Before anyone had the time to process what just happened, a large explosion blew a hole through one of the walls. Out stepped Burnin and several of the flaming sidekickers, flanked by the police. "League of Villains, you're under arrest," Burnin announced. Tomura's jaw dropped. "How did you know where to find us?" May activated a distress signal. We were visiting Best Genius Agency and decided to take the call. May grinned with glee. My emergency baby worked! She pulled a big red button labeled Panic from her pocket. Dobby gasped in shock. No, you can't do this. I haven't gotten to tell Endeavor that I'm his long-lost son, Toya Todoroki. Vernon shut her eyes and rubbed her temples with 2 fingers. Oh God, it's you again. For the last time, stop pretending to be Toya Todoroki. Endeavor already has 20 restraining orders against you, and guess who had to file each and every one of them? She turned to the police officers. Cuff 'em, boys. I really wish heroes would stop using those cheesy police lines, one cop muttered to the other. Ditto. Izuku and May stood off to the sidelines as they watched the League of Villains get carted off by the police. May sighed wistfully. I wish I got to test one of my more violent babies on them. Izuku patted her on the back. Don't worry, there's always Class 1A. Excuse me, Izuku Midoriya. Vernon walked up to the pair. I'd like to have a word with you. Oh, sure, hold on a minute, May. May scoffed and waved them off. Take your time, I'm just gonna see if any of the flaming sidekickers remember me. Vernon gave May a look of mild horror. Oh, trust me, we do. As Izuku and Vernon walked off from the police, Izuku couldn't help but ask, is this about the League? If so, shouldn't you be asking May about this stuff too? Vernon sat down on a nearby piece of rubble from the wall that was destroyed. Nah, I just wanted to thank you. Izuku sat down on a smaller chunk of rubble right next to her. You mean for taking out the League? I'd prefer you don't go public with that. I'm not trying to be a hero here. Vernon snickered. No, I'm talking about a few weeks ago with Shoto. Shoto? Yeah, I don't know what you did to him, but it did a lot of good for him. It did? Sure did. Vernon's hero persona dropped a little as she slumped down on the rubble. He wasn't really in the best place before you showed up. I tried to help him where I could, but I think he needs an outside perspective on the situation. I know it's hard to tell with that stoic expression, but I haven't seen him this happy in a long time. So, thanks. Izuku let out a small smile. Huh. I had no idea you and Shoto were so close. Yeah, I get that a lot. I see him around the agency a lot. He's like a little brother to me. I guess that's why Dobby pissed you off. Like you wouldn't believe. I'm half tempted to go up to him and smack him around some more. Izuku laughed. You wouldn't see me complaining. After being taken in for standard police questioning, Izuku and May were taken back to UA, where Izuku was asked to have a quick meeting with the principal. When Izuku got to the principal's office, he prepared to knock on the door, only for it to swing open on its own. You wanted to see me, sir? Izuku asked as he stepped in. That's correct. I know you've already been held up before school, so wouldn't want to waste your time. Come in, come in. Nezu smiled. Izuku sat down. I'm guessing you want to ask about this morning? Quite correct. I was made aware that you almost single-handedly took out the entire League of Villains on your own. Rest assured, most of them are going straight to Tartarus. Most of them? Nezu sighed sadly. Yes, we've looked at the file of Himiko Toga and found that it matched up with a case from a few years ago concerning a missing girl. We did some digging and found that her quirk requires she ingest blood to function properly. Her parents were aware of this, yet chose to deny her blood, effectively starving her. Needless to say, the girl is now in Ketsubuchu's villain rehabilitation program, and I doubt her parents are going to stay out of jail for much longer. Izuku sat there, silent for a moment as he took everything in. That's a lot, but I'm glad she's at least doing better. Yes, I'm glad too. But we're getting off topic, aren't we? My apologies. I merely wanted to take stock of any quirks you may have picked up on your path of destruction. Oh, well, I got muscle augmentation, magnetism, blade tooth, compression, and decay. I see. And what do you think of these new quirks? Izuku's hand made a so-so motion. They're alright, I guess. Muscle augmentation is good, but I only have one use in mind for it. Magnetism is situational, but I'm sure I could find some use for it. Compression is just a worse version of hammer space, except it works on people, but I think I'll stay out of the kidnapping game. I can't see the use for Blade Tooth beyond needing an extra appendage for stabbing, and Decay is just terrible. If I had a quirk that destroyed everything I touched for my entire life, I'd probably turn to villainy too. Nezu clapped his paws together. Well, from what I've read on Shigaraki's file, it seems to be a 5-point activation quirk, so if you were to simply give it to someone without 5 fingers... Izuku noticed Nezu hold up his paw. Yep, good idea. Thank you, sir. He quickly passed Decay into Nezu. No thanks are necessary. I'm just doing my job as a principal and looking out for my students. Speaking of which, I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news. Izuku's face shifted into a worried expression. What would that be? You being kidnapped today shows that you might be a target of interest for not just the League of Villains, but other villainous organizations as well. You may have gotten away with using your quirk in self-defense this time, but I worry the HBSC won't be as lenient should this situation repeat itself. Izuku's eyes went wide with realization. You don't mean... Nezu lowered his head in disappointment. I'm afraid I do. I must provoke you with the legal backup you need to defend yourself. Nezu solemnly slid an emergency provisional hero license on his desk. No. I'm sorry, Midoriya, but as of today, you're officially a licensed hero. Izuku fell to his knees and raised his fist in the air. No! So, Midoriya, what's your hero name, Ribbit? Suyu asked as she sat down to lunch. Izuku stared at his license with a look of pure despair. I wanted to be the unhero fuck you, but I didn't want that on my resume, so I went with the not hero I didn't ask for this license. Your hero name is I didn't ask for this license? It's true, I didn't, but the worst part about all this is that Kacchan hasn't stopped laughing since he heard the news 2 hours ago. He was right. Katsuki was sitting right next to Izuku, who was currently laughing himself into hysterics. He was holding his gut with one hand and repeatedly banging on the table with the other. Katsuki managed to blurt out a complete sentence in between the laughs. I knew you'd be a hero, but I didn't think it would happen like this. Great fucking job, Deku. Izuku responded by throwing his license in Katsuki's face. This accomplished nothing, but it made him feel good. All for One paced furiously around his hideout. Kurogiri had just told him how Tomura tried to kidnap Midoriya, which led to the capture of the entire League of Villains. Kurogiri couldn't even break his meat puppet protege out of jail without the risk of getting caught himself. Sure, they knew he was in Tartarus, but they had no idea where in Tartarus he was locked up, and even if they could break him out, it was clear that Tomura's trust in his master had all but dissipated. All for One sighed to himself. 18 years of hard work had just went down the drain in an instant. Where did he go wrong? It was probably the part where he let Tomura go outside at all. He should have just locked him in a bank vault like he did with his brother. Then he could have lied and said the heroes trapped him in there. That would have been great. But alas, All for One did not care to waste time on what-ifs. He needed a new plan to take one for all and claim his rightful place as the Demon King of Japan. No, he wasn't a Chunibyo. That was just the best way to describe his future title. Shut up. All for One took out his phone and dialed a number. Hello, Wolfram. I'm calling from the Island Expedition. No, don't worry. You and your crew will still be properly compensated. I merely want to accompany you so I may get my hands on the prize as soon as possible. And that was chapter 9. I am sorry I haven't posted in like a month. Honestly, I haven't really been busy. I just have been forgetting and, made some new friends on Discord, whatever. They're great people. But I hope you guys like that. And I am going to go ahead and record chapter 10. That way I can post that tomorrow. And I will see you guys later. Bye.